There is a river, and there are men waiting at the crossing. They do not check for uniforms. There are no uniforms in this world. They do not check for flags. There are no flags. They ask a question instead. Say the word. Say, Shibboleth. The man tries, he wants to live. He shapes his mouth around the sound. And out comes something almost right. Shibboleth, one consonant, that is all. And the men at the ford kill him. Not for what he believed, not for what he did, for how his tongue was made. This is the first password in recorded history, and it was used by Israelites, against Israelites. The man who gave that order was a judge of Israel. His name was Jephthah. Before the river, he had already made one other promise with his mouth, and that one cost him his only child. This is the story of a man who did not know how to speak to God. One small note before we begin. We told Samson's story before this one. That was a choice about theme, not about time. In the book, Jephthah comes first. Both belong to the same long unraveling. Now, Gilead. Gilead sits east of the Jordan River. High plateau, deep canyons, open sky. The tribes who live here are Israelites, but they are Israelites on the far side of the water, and the far side of the water is a lonely place to be. Their neighbors are Ammon and Moab and Aram. Their roads carry foreign goods and foreign gods. Into this frontier a boy is born. His father is named Gilead, like the land itself. His mother is a prostitute. The Bible does not soften this. It says it in the first sentence about him. And his half-brothers do exactly what you expect. They wait until they are strong enough. Then they drive him out. You will not inherit in our father's house. So Jephthah leaves. He goes to a place called Tob, somewhere out on the edge toward Aram, and there he becomes what a landless man becomes. He gathers a band of men. The Hebrew calls them rekim, empty men, hollow men, men with nothing. And they raid. A future judge of Israel spends his formative years outside Israel, away from the tabernacle, away from the priests, away from the law. And then, one day, the elders of Gilead come looking for him, because Ammon is at the door. For 18 years, the Ammonites have crushed the eastern tribes, and the elders have run out of men who can fight. So they come to the outlaw. Come and be our commander. And Jephthah does not simply say yes. He negotiates. You hated me. You drove me out. Why come to me now? And then he names his price, not commander for the battle, head over all Gilead, permanently. The man who was thrown away wants to become the man who cannot be thrown away again. Hold that thought. It explains everything that follows. Before Jephthah fights, he writes, he sends messengers to the king of Ammon, and what follows is not a threat. It is a legal brief. The king claims Israel stole his land, the land between the Arnon and the Jabbok. Jephthah answers with history. We did not take this land from Ammon. We took it from Sihon, king of the Amorites. Sihon attacked us first. Sihon lost. You have your God. We have the Lord. What the Lord our God has given us, we will hold. And then he says something historians have argued over ever since. For 300 years, Israel has lived in Heshbon, Aroer, and the towns along the Arnon. Why did you not take them back in all that time? 300 years, a number dropped in the middle of a war letter. And it matters enormously, because if you count backward, 300 years of settlement plus 40 in the wilderness, you land in the 15th century before Christ, an exodus around 1446, a conquest around 1406. This is the chronology this series has followed from the start, and Jephthah states it in a war letter, not as prophecy, but as something everyone already knew. Jephthah knew exactly whose land he stood on. He knew his scripture. which makes what he does next almost unbearable. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. Read that slowly. The empowering comes first before the vow, before the battle. God has already answered, and then Jephthah opens his mouth. If you will surely give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Every word here is a landmine. First, if you will surely give. The Hebrew doubles the verb, surely give, truly give, really do it. That doubling is not confidence, it is anxiety. The Spirit of God is already on him, and he is still trying to make certain. Second, whatever comes out. Many English Bibles say whatever. That word is doing a great deal of quiet work because the Hebrew is masculine and singular. And it is joined to a phrase, to meet me. In the Hebrew Bible, going out to meet someone is what people do. Animals do not come out to greet a returning general. Women do. With tambourines, with dancing. You will see it in 1 Samuel. You will see it in 3 verses' time, when his own daughter does exactly that. The ancient translators saw it too. The Greek uses a masculine form. The Latin says whosoever. Third, I will offer it up. The Hebrew verb is a causative form of olah, to cause something to go up. Up in smoke, and the pronoun attached to it is a personal pronoun. Him. That exact grammar appears in 2 other places in the Bible. Genesis 22, Abraham told to offer Isaac. 2 Kings 3, the king of Moab offering his firstborn son on the city wall. Both are human beings. Both are burned. And the word he uses, olah, appears nearly 300 times in the Hebrew Bible. It always means one thing, the whole burnt offering, the one completely consumed. It is never used for a person who goes to live at the sanctuary. Now, there is one more word, and 2,000 years of hope hang on it. The small Hebrew letter, wow. It shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it as a burnt offering. Or, it shall be the Lord's, or I will offer it as a burnt offering. And. Or, if it means and, then the thing given to God is the thing that burns. If it means or, then Jephthah made 2 promises. A person comes out, dedicated to God's service. An animal comes out, offered on the altar. That reading was proposed by the great medieval Jewish commentator Radak, and it has comforted readers ever since. But we should be honest about the grammar. In classical Hebrew, that or is rare. Between 2 verbs running in sequence, it is very rare. Most Hebraists say the natural reading is and, so there it stands. A man already filled with the Spirit, promising God a burnt offering he has not yet identified. Why would a judge of Israel say such a thing at all? Look at the country that raised him. Ammon's national god was Milcom. The name comes from the Semitic word for king, and the seals from Ammon suggest something interesting. Milcom may not have been a separate god at all, but a royal title of El, the old high god of Canaan, the king god, the one who hands out thrones. Around him sat Baal and Astarte and Anat, moon gods with crescents on their seals, sun discs, winged scarabs, a whole crowded sky. And in this world, the gods traded. You want victory? Then pay for it. And in a true emergency, you pay with the most valuable thing you own. Near the Amman Airport, archaeologists uncovered a square stone building from the late Bronze Age. Inside was a stone pyre, and around it, thousands of burned bone fragments, over 90% of them human, including a youth aged 14 to 18. Scholars still argue about that building. One excavator called it a temple of human sacrifice. Another argued it was a crematorium. Either way, this is the landscape. And we know from the Moabite stone and from 2 Kings that when King Mesha of Moab was losing a siege, he took his firstborn son and burned him on the city wall. And the armies of Israel went home. A Canaanite tablet from Ugarit preserves the same logic. In the ancient Near East, this was not madness. It was policy. And Jephthah had spent his life out there. Not at Shiloh. Not with the priests. Out in Tob, among men who believed heaven could be purchased. So when the moment came, he reached for the tool his neighbors used. He tried to buy God. And here is the tragedy beneath the tragedy. He did not need to. The Torah had already made a way out. Leviticus 27 sets a price for a person dedicated by a vow. A young woman could be redeemed. 30 shekels of silver. That is all it would have cost. He could have walked to the sanctuary, laid down the silver, and taken his daughter home. He did not. Either because he did not know the law, which is entirely possible for a man raised on the frontier, or because somewhere deep inside, he still believed the frontier gods were right. He wins. 20 towns fall. Ammon is broken, and he comes home, and the doors of his house open, and out she comes, with timbrels, with dancing, just like Miriam at the sea, just like the women who sing for victorious men, his only child. The Hebrew calls her Yehidah, his one and only. It is the same word Genesis uses for Isaac. And Jephthah tears his clothes. You have brought me very low. I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take it back. Listen to what he says. He does not say, I have sinned. He says, you have brought me low. He blames her for walking out of her own front door. And she is the one who answers like an Israelite. Father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me as you have said. She asks for 2 months, to go into the mountains with her friends, and to weep for her virginity. And then she comes back. And the text says only this. He did to her as he had vowed. 6 words in Hebrew. And then the narrator stops talking. The Bible does not tell us what happened in that room. And so for 2,000 years, people have argued. The first camp reads it plainly. He killed her. This was the reading of the early Jewish writers, of Josephus, of nearly every church father. They read olah as olah. They read the grammar as it stands. And they place the story where Judges places it, in a long slide downward. Othniel is clean. Gideon wins, then makes an idol. Jephthah wins, then burns his child. Samson breaks every vow he ever took. The leaders are forgetting God fastest of all. The second camp reads it differently. He did not kill her. He gave her away. This view grew strong in the Middle Ages. Radak, Ibn Ezra, Ralbag, Abarbanel. And they ask questions that will not go away. Why does the text mention her virginity 3 separate times? Why does she weep for her virginity and not for her life? Why does the chapter end with, and she knew no man? A strange thing to say about a dead girl. And why does the New Testament place Jephthah in the great chapter of faith, in Hebrews 11, if he committed the one act God most abhorred? These are serious questions, and the answers cut both ways, because in ancient Israel, dying childless was not a private sorrow. For an only daughter, it meant the end of her father's name, the end of his land, the end of his line. She may have wept for her virginity precisely because she was about to die as a virgin. And Hebrews 11 is not a list of good men. It is a list of people who trusted God. Gideon made an idol. Samson chased women and died in a pagan temple. Barak would not go without Deborah. Calvin said it best. There was not one of them, he wrote, whose faith was not lame. Hebrews praises Jephthah for one thing. He believed the God of Israel would keep his covenant, and he went out to fight on that belief. Hebrews does not praise the vow. Nobody praises the vow. The Talmud calls it an improper oath. The Midrash tells a bitter story. Jephthah could have gone to Phinehas, the high priest, and asked to have the vow annulled. But a victorious general does not walk to a priest, and a high priest does not walk to a bandit. So each man waited for the other, and a girl died in the space between two men's pride. Ambrose wrote that it would have been better to break the promise than to keep it in his daughter's blood. And Augustine noticed something we should all notice. The narrator never says God approved. The narrator never says God was pleased. The narrator says nothing at all. And that silence, Augustine said, is deliberate. It is there to make you think. Because in Genesis 22, when the knife went up, heaven interrupted. Abraham, Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy. And in Judges 11, nothing. No angel, no voice, no ram in the thicket. God did not command this. God did not want this. God did not stop it. He let a man have exactly what he asked for. That is the most frightening answered prayer in Scripture. Here is where this episode lands. And we will say plainly, this is our framing, not a verse. Whichever way you decide the daughter's fate, the vow is condemned either way. She was never meant to be on that altar, and she was never meant to be shut away in that silence. 30 shekels, a walk to the sanctuary, a father who knew his God better. That is all it would have taken. And now we return to the river. The story is not finished. The men of Ephraim arrive, after the war is already won. Ephraim is the great tribe, the central hill country, the rich land. Shiloh and the tabernacle sit inside their borders. They think of themselves as the leaders of Israel. They had done this before. They confronted Gideon for fighting without them. And Gideon flattered them and diffused it with a joke. Jephthah is not Gideon. Ephraim crosses the river and threatens to burn his house down with him inside it. And then they name them. Ephraim's leftovers. Men who ran. Men who took what was not theirs. Men who belong nowhere. Of all the men in Israel to say that to, they said it to Jephthah, to the man whose entire life is that accusation. And Jephthah does not make a joke. He calls up Gilead, and he destroys them. And then he does something colder. He seizes the fords of the Jordan. A ford is a shallow bar in the riverbed, the only place a man on foot can wade across. Everywhere else, the Jordan runs deep and fast. There are no boats. Take the ford, or do not cross at all. And Jephthah's men are standing on every ford. Ephraim is trapped on the wrong bank. And at every crossing they ask one
Shibboleth.
question. Say, Shibboleth. The word has two meanings in Hebrew, an ear of grain and a flowing stream. At a river crossing, stream is a grim little joke, but that is not why it worked. It worked because of a sound. The dialects east of the Jordan were conservative. They had kept an old Semitic consonant, something close to the th in the English word thin. The dialects west of the Jordan had lost it. So when an Ephraimite tried to say the Gileadite word, his mouth had no room for it. He reached for the nearest sound he owned, and he said, Shibboleth. This is not a moral failure. It is not stupidity. It is what every human being does with a foreign sound. It is why some speakers say zis instead of this. You cannot fake a phoneme under terror. Your tongue tells the truth about where you were born. Scholars still debate the exact phonetics, but all agree on the principle. The Jordan was not only a river, it was a dialect boundary, and that day, it became a line of execution. The text says 42,000 fell. The Hebrew word elef can mean thousand. It can also mean a clan or a fighting unit. So it may have been 42,000 men, or 42 units, hunted down one by one. Either way, the meaning is the same. Ephraim was broken, and the Israelites broke them. Look at what the book has shown us. A judge who could recite 300 years of covenant history to a foreign king. And who could not remember one page of Leviticus when his own daughter stood in the doorway? A man who defeated Ammon and then killed more Israelites in a single afternoon than Ammon had killed in 18 years. There is no king in Israel. There is no court to overrule him. There is no priest with authority to stop him. There is only a strong man with a mouth and a river full of bodies. For a long time, scholars pictured early Israel as an orderly league of tribes, a holy federation, gathered around one sanctuary. Judges 12 destroys that picture. What we see instead is a scattering of clans who cooperate only when they are terrified and turn on each other the moment the terror passes. A system with no center cannot hold. Jephthah's daughter walked out of that door because there was nobody in Israel with the authority to tell her father no. Men died at the fords because there was nobody in Israel with the authority to make peace. And the people are beginning to notice. They look across the border at Ammon, at Moab, at Philistia, and they begin to want what those nations have. A throne, a standing army, a man who can say stop. They are going to ask for a king. They will say it out loud, make us like all the other nations, and they will get exactly what they ask for. The taxes, the conscription, the sons taken for the chariots. They will trade their strange freedom under God for the safety of a strong hand. And a prophet named Samuel will stand in front of them and warn them that they have no idea what they are buying. That is where we go next.